And what we're recognizing here is what we'll refer to as the 2 E's. Integration of technology into the classroom is all about efficiency for the purpose of greater or more effective lessons. And the notebook software, the software that can tie all this technology together, allowing a classroom teacher to seamlessly weave in digital content from online, videos, live streams of non-digital content through their document camera, tying all of this together in a very efficient, time-efficient manner for the purpose of more effective lessons is what this technology is all about. So I've used an example from Owl Moon. And many of you might be familiar with Owl Moon, a book by Jane Yolen. And working recently with a 5th grade teacher, the 5th grade teacher utilized these 3 paragraphs to illustrate very descriptive writing. And the teacher would often read these passages aloud to the students, asking them to follow along and paint the picture, try to set the scene in their own minds. And typically, if we were to read this aloud, some of the students in the class might be able to effectively set that scene, and others would drift off into space, paying no attention. So in working with this teacher, how do we better engage those learners that might be more visual or might be more auditory learners, etc.? And in talking to this teacher, she talked about how she would bring in pictures. And of course, if there were pictures in the book, obviously sharing those with the student. So in this case, we went out to the internet, found a picture of an owl on the moon, and brought that directly into Notebook. It's just an object. Now we've set it as our background in this page of the Notebook lesson. Once we've visually set the scene, now I'm going to use this blue arrow as my handle where I've hidden the exact same 3 paragraphs, that passage, off to the side. So we'll pull out that passage. And now we could read this passage aloud once again, having set the scene visually and tying in audio to support as well. So bear with me as I read this aloud. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind, the trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright, the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time, and when their voices faded away, it was quiet as a dream. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short, round shadow bumped after me. We walked on. I could feel the cold as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my back, and my nose and tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. This is an illustration of how obviously we can tie in images, audio to better help our students set the scene, but also an example of a much more interactive and engaging lesson for students. And ultimately, what are we achieving here but simply allowing the teacher to more effectively engage different types of learners. And at the same time, we'll draw attention to the fact that we're not employing any different educational or instructional strategies here. The instructional strategies are much the same, but now that we've been able to develop and deliver this in a digital format makes access to these resources later that much easier, and the ability to share these resources with colleagues that much easier as well. So in this case, if this is a page that I've created within Notebook that I'd like to save, I'm simply going to select that page, and I'm going to drag that page up to my Gallery side tab, where I'm going to drop it into the My Content folder. Once inside the My Content folder, I'll see the appearance categorized under Notebook Files and Pages. Here is my lesson. And now if I want to go ahead and add a blank page, drag this out, I could drag it out from any notebook file that I'm in. And the audio is already embedded, all the interactivity remains, etc. Let me go right back to my page sorter. and continue where we left off. So again, we're just simply engaging different types of learners. And once I've created this digitally, next year when I bring out this exact same lesson, I'm more effective in getting up to speed with this, and more critically looking around the room at the learners that I have this year and identifying what instructional needs do this year's learners have that perhaps last year's learners did not, and of course building on that. So a lot of these basic lessons utilize some very simple instructional strategies or instructional techniques within the Notebook software. So highlighting some basic features within Notebook will help us to tie some of this together. So 4 specific features that I kind of refer to as more advanced, but will oftentimes encourage teachers to think about in their own lessons to create more engaging lessons, are as follows. Number 1 is that of grouping. So you'll notice over here in the right-hand corner we have an object that represents water, and we know that water, consisting of oxygen and hydrogen, specifically consists of 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms at a very specific bond angle. Now you'll notice that each one of these objects is completely independent. If, however, I select all of these objects, in this case I'm going to do what's called a marquee select, selecting on the work area and dragging over all of the objects that I want to select. By selecting the drop-down menu of simply one of them and going to the grouping option, I can group these objects. Now you'll notice that all of these objects will move together, they will resize together, and of course they will rotate together. Grouping. The next is that of layering, and identifying that, number 1, layers exist within the software. I'm going to go over to my Gallery tab. I'm going to select the search option, and I'm going to search for cards. And under Pictures and Backgrounds, I get some digital images of various cards within a 52-card deck. In this case, we're going to go ahead and drag out a couple of these images. Number 1 represent that layers are created based on the order in which objects are introduced to the work area. So in this case, the Ace of Clubs should be layered on top of the Ace of Hearts, and the Ace of Spades should now be layered on top of the Ace of Clubs. Once I've created these layers, I can also manipulate these layers through the drop-down menu of any selected object. Under the order option, I can choose to send the Ace of Spades to the back or backward 1 layer, such that now the Ace of Spades is ordered between the club and the heart. I'm going to select the Ace of Clubs, drop down menu, order, and send it to the back, and now it should be layered behind everything that exists on that page, including the text box that preceded it on that page. Right back to the page sorter. And linking. Recognizing that links, that any object within the work area under the drop-down menu, we can build in links. Links are all about saving time, whether I'm linking to a web page or I'm actually going to type in the actual URL, or linking to a page within the existing file. And in this case, maybe I want to link it to the next page in the file. Linking to files that exist on my computer or files that appear within the Attachments tab of the Notebook software. So links can be created. And of course, finally, the ability to attach sound. So just like the previous object, selecting any object in the work area, drop down menu, and now to sound objects, we can attach a sound. So I could browse out onto my computer, find a specific sound file, whether it be a WAV or MP3 file, and attach it directly to that object, much like you saw the objects played during the Owl Moon example. So with this, I'll say thank you for allowing us to review this basic introduction to Smart Notebook Collaborative Learning Software. I hope it was beneficial.